Welcome to the deep dive. Some conflicts feel so deeply entrenched, almost ancient, really.
Yeah, like trying to understand them is like digging through layers and layers of time.
Exactly. And perhaps none feels quite like that as much as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So today, we're embarking on a deep dive into exactly that.
And the aim isn't finding simple answers, right? Because there really aren't any.
No, absolutely not. It's about grasping the multifaceted history, the diplomatic twists and turns, and the profound human impact. It's shaped this region for centuries.
So our mission today is really to unpack those historical complexities.
Right. We'll look at the foundational claims to the land, those pivotal moments in international diplomacy, the devastating wars.
And the ongoing efforts for peace, which, let's be honest, have often been quite frustrated.
Definitely. We've gathered a stack of sources, historical accounts, modern analyses, even some raw discussions to guide you through this. It's dense, but really crucial.
And hopefully you'll gain a thorough but still digestible understanding, the timeline, the different perspectives.
Perspectives that make it so challenging to resolve.
Mm.
We want you to uncover some maybe surprising facts and connect the dots between those big international decisions and the local experiences.
How that whole intricate tapestry got woven together.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, the historical roots. A land known by, well, many names over the millennia.
Canaan, Retinue, Habiru lands.
Right. And home to ancient kingdoms like Israel and Judah way back 12 to 6 centuries BCE.
And then a whole succession of empires came through: Babylonian, Persian, Hellenistic, Hasmonean, Herodian.
And then finally, Roman rule. And after that disastrous Jewish uprising in 135 CE, the Romans, they expelled many Jews from Jerusalem.
And they decreed the territory become part of Syria-Palestina.
Which is interesting because the name Palestine itself, it has a historical link to the Philistines, right? Ancient adversaries of the Israelites.
It does. And another striking aspect here: following the 7th century Islamic conquest, Arab peoples settled in really significant numbers.
And for over 1,000 years, the population was overwhelmingly Arab.
Yeah, for over a millennium. So if you look purely at the historical timeline, the term Israel definitely predates Palestine by, well, over 1,000 years in referring to the land itself.
But then Palestine became home to this substantial Arab population for more than a millennium after the Jewish people were dispersed.
Exactly. And this duality, in historical naming and the demographic shifts, it lays critical groundwork. It's sort of the foundation for the competing claims we still see.
Okay, and that brings us to a really pivotal shift, maybe second half of the 19th century.
Right. With mounting anti-Semitism in Europe and Russia, you see the emergence of Zionism.
The Jewish nationalistic movement, driven by this yearning to return to their ancestral land, what they viewed as their historic homeland.
And as Jews began to trickle back, maybe trickle isn't quite the word later on, but initially,
They encountered a sizable Arab population that had, been there for centuries.
which immediately raises the question: how did outside powers start shaping things at this crucial point?
Good question. Because at the turn of the 20th century, the Middle East was part of the Ottoman Empire, right? The weakening Ottoman Empire.
The sick man of Europe, as it was often called. And that weakness attracted strategic interest from European powers: Britain, France, Russia.
So the Ottomans, trying to resist this, they allied with the Central Powers in World War I.
And it's during that war period that Britain starts making some, well, frankly, conflicting promises.
It's like the McMahon-Hussein Correspondence, 1915-16.
Exactly. Britain needed support against the Ottomans, so they promised the Sharif of Mecca, Hussein, support for an independent Arab state in Palestine,
In exchange for launching the Arab Revolt.
which ultimately helped the British defeat the Ottomans and gain control of the region.
But, and here's the crunch, right? Simultaneously and secretly.
They were making totally different plans with France: the Sykes-Picot Agreement in 1916.
Which aimed to partition the Ottoman Arab lands, carving out spheres of control and influence.
Yeah, France gets Syria and Lebanon, Britain gets southern Palestine, influence in Transjordan. And these boundaries, they were just drawn on a map.
With no consultation with the people living there.
None whatsoever. Basically laying the groundwork for future conflicts by just ignoring local aspirations. It's quite stark when you look back.
So that sounds like, well, a disaster waiting to happen. What happened when this secret deal became public?
Oh, it was huge. In November 1917, Leon Trotsky, the Russian commissar, leaked the agreement.
Reveal the duplicitous nature of it all.
Exactly. It caused a profound shock, a real perception of betrayal among Arab leaders who'd been promised independence.
And just a few days later, literally days after that leak, November 1917 again, the British government issues another key document, the Balfour Declaration.
Drafted by Lord Milner, expressing favor for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people.
But with that crucial caveat,
The caveat: nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities.
so what was the real thinking behind that, coming right after the Sykes-Picot leak? Was it just idealism?
Well, sources suggest it wasn't purely idealistic. It was also a strategic move, a propagandist reason, during a really critical phase of World War I.
Trying to rally Jewish support for the Allies, maybe,
Yeah,
especially in the U.S. and Russia.
precisely. And Prime Minister David Lloyd George, he specifically wanted a major victory, like capturing Jerusalem, to impress the British public.
So these contradictory promises, driven by different wartime aims.
They inadvertently laid this foundation of completely irreconcilable expectations for both Arabs and Jews. It's a dilemma that, echoes right down to today.
And it's fascinating that even within Britain, it wasn't universally popular.
No, not at all. Many British military leaders apparently thought the Balfour Declaration was a mistake, or at least a grave risk.
Even Arthur Balfour himself, in a 1919 memo, noted the contradiction between the policy and the wishes of the 700,000 Arabs living there then.
Yeah, and after World War I, that short-lived Arab kingdom of Syria, crushed by the French in 1920.
And King Hussein, he refused to ratify the treaties, Versailles and Sèvres, because of what they meant for Palestine and Syria.
Which led to the British cutting off his subsidies. So ultimately, the British mandate for Palestine, recognized by the League of Nations, it formally incorporated the Balfour Declaration.
So those conflicting promises essentially became official policy, cemented in place.
Mm-hmm. Which brings us forward into the 1940s, a culmination, really, of these historical forces and diplomatic moves, the birth of Israel and the events known as the Nakba.
Right. November 1947, the UN General Assembly recommends partitioning Palestine, an Arab state, a Jewish state, and Jerusalem under international administration.
A plan Palestinian Arabs opposed, seeing it as, well, dividing their homeland.
While Zionist leaders accepted it, though, as you mentioned, maybe with intentions to expand beyond those specific borders later.
That's what some sources suggest, yes. And violence erupted almost immediately after the UN resolution passed.
Jewish militias, many strengthened by WWII experience, fought against the Arab Liberation Army and Palestinian forces, who were supported by the Arab League.
And this conflict led to the collapse of Arab forces in many areas, significant territorial gains for Jewish forces, and crucially, a large-scale refugee problem starting even then.
And then, May 14th, 1948, right as the British mandate ended, David Ben-Gurion declares the establishment of the State of Israel.
The declaration itself promised complete equality of social and political rights, regardless of religion, race, or sex, and protection for holy places.
But the events of 1948, they're viewed so differently, aren't they? Two stark narratives.
Sharply differing, yet you could argue equally legitimate from their own perspectives. Most academic historians seem to agree that actions by both pre-state Jewish militias and the new Israeli state resulted in the massive displacement of Palestine's Arab population.
And actively prevented their return.
Yes. For Palestinians, this is the Nakba, the catastrophe. It means the displacement of hundreds of thousands, thousands killed trying to return, and this sense of deliberate erasure of their culture, towns, villages, even place names changed.
Many see it not just as 1948, but an ongoing process, creating a refugee nation.
Exactly. But conversely, for Israelis, 1948 is their war of independence, an existential fight for survival, especially, right after the Holocaust, and facing hostile rhetoric from surrounding Arab nations.
Some historians, like Benny Morris, have argued that while the expulsions were terrible, they were seen as necessary, perhaps, to secure a Jewish majority in that brand new state.
It's a contentious point, but part of the Israeli narrative. And following this, between 48 and 51, Jewish immigration just exploded.
Doubled Israel's Jewish population, 700,000 people.
Yes, including many refugees themselves from Asian and North African countries from Eastern Europe.
And that massive influx, plus the war,
Yeah.
it must have caused huge strain.
Immense strain. It led to the austerity period rationing temporary camps for immigrants known as Ma'abarat.
Israel received crucial financial aid then, right? Mainly from the U.S.
Yes, and also negotiated controversial reparations with West Germany. Really, a nation building itself amidst incredible challenges and these deeply conflicting historical forces.
Okay, so this leads us into a period of major conflicts with really far-reaching consequences. Let's talk about the Six-Day War, June 1967.
Right. The buildup was incredibly tense. Border clashes, a defense pact between Syria and Egypt.
And then Egypt's President Nasser closed the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping and amassed troops in the Sinai.
Escalating things dramatically. So on June 5th, Israel launched Operation Focus.
A surprise air attack.
A massive surprise attack. Destroyed most of the Egyptian Air Force on the ground. They flew low over the Med to avoid radar.
Initially, both sides claimed the other attacked first, but Israel later acknowledged striking first.
Yes, they framed it as a preemptive move against what they saw as an imminent invasion. But it's still debated by historians, was it preventative war or a war of aggression?
And the fighting on the ground was intense too. Jordan got involved.
Jordanian forces shelled Israeli areas. Fierce battles erupted in Jerusalem, the police academy, Ammunition Hill. Israeli paratroopers eventually captured the old city.
Literally without using tanks or heavy armor there to avoid damaging holy sites.
Correct. Hebron was taken without resistance, and after some hesitation, Israel pushed into the Golan Heights as well.
And the results, after just 6 days, were staggering.
Absolutely transformative. Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights.
Which meant, for the first time since the Mandate, sometimes for centuries, Jews could visit key holy sites like the Western Wall, Cave of the Patriarchs, Rachel's Tomb.
A hugely significant moment for many Jews, but it also created a new wave of displacement.
How many people are we talking about?
Estimates range from 280,000 to 325,000 Palestinians displaced from the West Bank and Gaza, plus over 100,000 Syrians from the Golan Heights.
And residents in East Jerusalem and the Golan were offered Israeli citizenship.
They were, but the vast majority declined it.
What was the impact inside Israel itself?
Huge euphoria, an economic boom, partly fueled by tourism and donations, even a baby boom. It also ignited Zionist feelings among Soviet Jews, leading to more immigration.
And spurred the Baal Teshuvah movement, secular Jews returning to religious practice.
Yes. But for the Arab world, it was devastating, known as the setback, a Naksa. And it led to increased persecution and expulsion of Jewish populations remaining in Arab countries.
So, a significant Jewish exodus from Arab lands followed that war too. It really did change everything.
Irrevocably altered the entire region's geopolitics.
And the conflicts kept coming. The Yom Kippur War in '73.
Which led to the '73 oil crisis, remember, the Saudi-led embargo against countries trading with Israel. Lots of nations downgraded relations then.
Then later, the First Intifada, the Palestinian uprising from '87 to '93.
Significant casualties on both sides there. Over 1,100 Palestinians killed by Israeli forces, 160 Israelis killed, plus hundreds of Palestinians killed internally as alleged collaborators. That period also saw the rise of human rights groups like Beit Salam.
And then the Second Intifada, 2000 to 2005, characterized by those terrible suicide bombings.
Yes, and ambushes. Over 1,000 Israelis killed, thousands wounded. And that conflict really became a catalyst for Israel building the West Bank barrier.
Amidst all this conflict, were there serious attempts at peace? Diplomatic shifts?
Yes, there were. The PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, started to shift its focus away from liberating all of historical Palestine towards achieving a state in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem.
Based on the 1949 armistice lines, the pre-1967 borders, essentially.
Right. And in 1988, Yasser Arafat formally embraced that two-state goal. He explicitly denounced terrorism and recognized Israel's right to exist.
Which met the conditions for the U.S. to start negotiations with the PLO.
Exactly. And this paved the way for the Oslo Accords, 1993 and 1995.
Landmark agreements between Israeli leader Yitzhak Rabin and Arafat, aimed at peace.
Arafat's letter recognizing Israel was a huge milestone, though it's worth noting Israel didn't reciprocally recognize Palestinian statehood in those agreements.
Interesting distinction. So Oslo, I set up a framework for later talks on the big issues: Jerusalem, refugees, borders.
The final status issues, yes. And Oslo II divided the West Bank and Gaza into areas A, B, and C, with different levels of Palestinian and Israeli control.
But Oslo faced problems, didn't it? Criticisms?
Oh, definitely. Critics argued it didn't really uphold Palestinian self-determination. Some said it effectively allowed Israel to continue the occupation under a different guise.
Israel to do virtually what it likes, as one quote put it.
Yes. And the whole process was incredibly fragile. It really started unraveling after Rabin was assassinated in 95 by an Israeli extremist.
And then the failures at Camp David in 2000 and Taba in 2001.
Deep, fundamental disagreements, especially on using international consensus as the basis for talks. The core issues just remain totally unresolved.
Which perhaps leads to the next major event, Israel's unilateral disengagement from Gaza in 2005.
Initiated by Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, pulling out all Israeli forces and settlers from the Gaza Strip.
Even though his own Likud party members voted against it in a referendum.
Yes, he pushed it through anyway. Around 9,000 Israeli settlers had to leave. Most accepted compensation.
How was that received? What was the impact?
Very mixed. Critics saw it not as a peace move, but as a way to freeze the peace process, to prevent a Palestinian state while solidifying Israeli control over the bigger settlement blocks in the West Bank.
Sharon's own chief of staff, Dov Weissglass, reportedly said its significance was the freezing of the peace process.
That quote is often cited, yes. And the aftermath in Gaza. Well, Hamas won Palestinian elections shortly after,
One then took control of Gaza by force from Fatah in 2007.
leading to increased instability and setting the stage for a new phase of the conflict focused on Gaza.
So after tracing this long, complex history, let's zero in on those core issues, the unresolved flashpoints that just keep blocking any path to peace. They're all intertwined, aren't they?
Deeply. Let's start with the two-state solution itself and Jerusalem.
The international community generally supports two states based on 1967 borders.
Broadly, yes, though the U.S. and Israel have often preferred direct bilateral negotiations. And public support for two states, on both sides actually, seems to be declining.
Israeli policy often seems more focused on managing or maintaining the occupation rather than ending it.
In Jerusalem. Well, Israel's government has been in West Jerusalem since 48. After 67, they annexed East Jerusalem, declared the whole city their complete and united capital in 1980.
But the UN consistently calls Israel's control over East Jerusalem invalid under international law.
That's the international position, yes, which links directly to the issue of settlements and the West Bank barrier.
The settlements keep expanding. By 2023, 500,000 settlers in the West Bank, 200,000 in East Jerusalem.
Roughly those numbers, yes, with rapid housing expansion continuing. And the barrier, the wall. The International Court of Justice, the ICJ, ruled back in 2004 that it violates Palestinian self-determination and the Geneva Conventions,
suggesting its route was designed to protect and perpetuate settlements.
That was the ICJ's finding, though Israel's own high court disagreed with parts of that ruling.
Then there's Gaza. The humanitarian situation there sounds dire.
It is. The blockade started tightening after the 2005 disengagement, intensified after Hamas won elections in 2006, and then reached what was called a total siege after the October 2023 attacks.
Denying food, water, electricity, fuel.
Leading to, well, reports of imminent famine, a collapse of the health system, waterborne diseases, just a catastrophic humanitarian crisis.
And that detail about calculating calorie needs and then reducing them? That's disturbing.
It was reported, yes. Adjusting for the supposed culture and experience of Gazans. Very chilling.
Another huge, maybe insurmountable issue. Palestinian refugees and the right of return.
The official Palestinian position absolutely insists on the right of refugees and their descendants to return to the homes and lands they lost in 48 and 67.
But Israel sees that as impossible, right? Incompatible with its identity as a Jewish state.
Demographically and politically, yes. They argue it would fundamentally alter the state's character. And remember, Israel's law of return from 1950.
Allows any Jew from anywhere in the world to immigrate and get citizenship.
But denies that same right to Palestinian refugees who were actually born there or whose families were.
And water. That's another major point of contention.
Yeah.
The region is water scarce anyway.
Extremely water stressed. And about a third of Israel's water supply actually comes from groundwater aquifers under the West Bank.
And post-1967, Israel took control of West Bank water resources.
Essentially abrogated Palestinian water rights. Reports mention denying permits for Palestinians to drill new wells, imposing strict quotas, while settlements often face fewer restrictions. International reports have called it confiscation of water.
And even weaponizing water in military actions more recently.
That language has been used, yes.
Which brings us to a very heavy and increasingly prominent issue. The claims of apartheid.
Yes. In recent years, all major Israeli human rights groups like B'Tselem and international ones, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, have published reports concluding that Israeli policies and actions constitute the crime of apartheid under international law.
And the ICJ finding in July 2024.
Determined that Israeli policies violate the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. It's crucial to understand this isn't just a political insult.
It's a specific legal term.
It refers to a specific legal definition involving systematic oppression and domination by one racial group over another, with the intent to maintain that regime. Grasping that legal context is key.
And this brings us right up to the present day. The period since 2006 has seen multiple wars between Hamas in Gaza and Israel.
And the attacks by Hamas-led groups on October 7th, 2023, and the massive Israeli military response
Have caused just unbelievable destruction, mass displacement again, and this ongoing severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Some international legal experts, genocide scholars, human rights groups have described Israel's actions in Gaza as constituting genocide. The ICJ, in January 2024, ordered Israel to take measures to prevent genocidal acts.
But didn't order a ceasefire at that time?
No, these recent events just underscore how profound, how deeply entrenched, and how devastating the ongoing conflict remains.
So we've journeyed through millennia, ancient kingdoms, modern states, this intricate web of claims, promises, devastating conflicts, attempts at peace.
Seeing how diplomacy, war, and these deeply held national and religious feelings have shaped this land. A land known by two names, fiercely claimed by two peoples.
Understanding it really means embracing that complexity, doesn't it? Acknowledging the legitimate but often totally conflicting narratives.
And recognizing history isn't usually a straight line. These perspectives we've touched on, they're deeply felt, constantly evolving.
There's a quote from an observer suggesting that any hope of ending the conflict requires Palestinians and Israeli Jews to either acknowledge each other's versions of history without arguing legitimacy, or maybe just ignore them.
The only possible peace agreement is one that looks forward.
Which raises such a profound question for us and for you listening. When historical claims are so foundational, so tied up in identity and grievance, how can societies truly look forward?
What could it possibly take to transform a history so marked by violence and loss into something genuinely new? Something built on understanding, not just perpetuating division.
A difficult question to end on, but perhaps the most important one. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.